You're listening to the OnePeterFive podcast.
It is a real joy for us to welcome you all here. Habemus Papam.
Rebuilding Catholic culture, restoring Catholic tradition.
Hello and welcome to the OnePeterFive podcast, episode number 55. I'm Steve Skojek. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the feast that is today, December 12th, 2019. Today is the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And most of you, no doubt, know the story of the miraculous 16th century apparition of Our Lady to a young man of Aztec descent, Juan Diego, who is now also a saint, Saint Juan Diego. And her appearance to Juan Diego was confirmed for his presentation to the bishop at the time by the miraculous superimposition of her image on his tilma, which was sort of the poncho that the people of the time wore. It was made out of native plant fibers, the kind of thing that doesn't last a long time. And here we are 500 years later, and it's in pristine and perfect condition. And the pigments on the image are, of course, not of known origin. A microscopic examination of the tilma has shown reflections in the eyes of Our Lady that actually indicate distinct faces of the people who were in the room when Juan Diego revealed the tilma to the bishop, not knowing that there was an image inside. He was simply told by Our Lady to gather up the roses and put them in the tilma and bring them as a gift to the bishop as proof that she was appearing to him on Tepeyac Hill. So there's a great story here. Most of you know it. I'm not going to rehash it now, but I've been twice to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, both times in my youth. And one of those two times was a pilgrimage that I went on with friends in college, where we drove the entire distance of however many thousand miles from Steubenville, Ohio to Mexico City in the span of just a few days. And we faced a lot of very interesting and challenging events along the way, as pilgrimages tend to bring up. And I've written about this before here at OnePeterFive. I've written the story of my pilgrimage to Our Lady of Guadalupe, but I wanted today to do something a little bit different and revisit it with my friend Tomas Fuerte. And Tomas and I were roommates our second semester of our freshman year at Steubenville. We lived next door to one another in Marion Hall at Franciscan University back when it was a guys' dorm. It's not a guys' dorm anymore. And we both had less than stellar experiences with our assigned roommates our first semester of our freshman year. And so we roomed together following that. Our pilgrimage didn't come until 2 years later. And by then we were already good friends. And now here we are 21 years later to the day, and we wanted to catch up and talk about this. Now, Tomas, for his part, also works for the church. He is an instructor at the Denver Catholic Biblical School. He's been a director of religious education for many years in the Archdiocese of Denver, Colorado. He has also taught, I believe, at the seminary level and completed his master's degree in sacred theology at the Angelicum in Rome. Tomas also worked at Christendom College. I believe he directed their Rome program for 1 semester or 1 year. So he's had some work in Catholic education, where I've worked in Catholic media. At the time, though, we were just a couple of friends who, together with a third friend, jumped in a red pickup truck right after finals in December of 1998 and sped off for the border and adventures unknown. So we're going to talk about that little adventure in just a minute, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this with Tomas Fuerte. Thank you for being a part of our family of faithful Catholics concerned about not just the crisis in the church, but the steps we can take now to start rebuilding the faith that changed the world. We know you enjoy the content we provide. After all, you're seeing this message right now because you're watching one of our videos. So I'm here to ask you to please help us continue doing this vital work by making a financial contribution in support of our cause. We've been committed since day one to offering the highest quality Catholic content you can find anywhere online. We have always provided that content free of charge so that we can reach and help the greatest number of people possible. But our content isn't free to produce. We have a team of very talented individuals who work every day writing and editing articles, producing videos and podcasts, putting together graphic design, answering emails, managing everything that goes on behind the scenes of a publication like ours. With millions of readers, listeners, and viewers around the world, we're confident that our modest fundraising goals are always within reach. We think of this as the Matthew 6:33 principle. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. If you're one of the thousands of Catholics who already support our work, I want to say thank you for all that you've done for us. If you've not yet contributed but believe our efforts are worthwhile, we hope that you'll prayerfully consider doing so today. No donation is too small because we have strength in numbers. If you'd like to support OnePeterFive, just go to onepeterfive.com/donate to make a contribution today. Our online portal is easy to use and options are available for those who would prefer to donate by mail. Remember that OnePeterFive is a tax-exempt organization, so your contributions are fully tax-deductible as allowed by law. May God bless you abundantly, and thank you so much for your support. So with me now is Tomas Fuerte, who is a full-time instructor at the Denver Catholic Biblical School and an aspiring expert on all things Godzilla. I note that you are wearing the Kaiju Division shirt. This is very nice. Mm-hmm. That shirt went through like crap through a goose. Remember that line from the old Godzilla movie?
Oh, you bet I do, yeah.
Yeah, that was your bachelor party was seeing Godzilla. Yeah, so Tomas and I are old friends. We go way back in the day. We were roommates in college. And one of the things that Tomas and I did together, one of our many adventures, was a road trip from Steubenville, Ohio to Mexico City for the pilgrimage-ish kind of thing for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. We got there a little bit late.
Just a day.
I mean, no, we got there that night, right?
We got there by 9 o'clock at night is when we actually walked into the plaza, yeah.
And the gates were locked, and we just kind of sadly went out and put our faces up against them. We're like, we're here. But we drove. I mean, I don't even know how many thousand miles that was in like 3 days.
Oh, it had to be at least 3,000.
And we broke down in San Antonio, so we had to stop there for most of the day to get the muffler fixed.
Staying with a good friend who was there in town.
Yeah, so we drove with a friend who is such a Luddite that he only has a flip phone and he could never do a podcast. But it was his truck that we were in. So 3 rather large human beings in a little truck.
Well, smaller at that time, but yes.
We were all significantly smaller at that time.
On multiple levels, yes.
Life has been good to us. So I don't remember exactly how this thing got started, though. Do you? Like, where did the idea come from for the trip to Mexico for Our Lady of Guadalupe?
Well, for me, it was because I had finished the consecration according to St. Louis de Montfort and on December 8th. And as I was preparing to complete that consecration, I asked you guys, like, it would be great if we could do something significant to go honor our Blessed Mother. And I think it was my idea. Like, I always wanted to go to Mexico City to go see the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I think the other friend said, well, let's go.
Right, because that was kind of the way he did things. The other friend, his name is Paul. We'll call him Paul.
Okay, Paul.
Because that's his name.
I suppose you could call him that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, for the sake of anonymity, we'll just call him Paul, because it's his name.
Sure.
And, so he was always up for anything. I mean, it was only a few months after that trip that he was ready and telling me we needed to go walk to South America. I did not take him up on that idea. I think there was a civil war in Guatemala at the time, and I didn't really want to,
I mean, what's a civil war amongst friends, though, really?
If it all goes to hell, you just meet up in Tampico.
Exactly right.
So, okay, so you wanted to go. You brought up the idea to him, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go, right? So I wasn't even a part of that conversation. I don't remember even how I got inducted into this.
That sounds familiar. I believe that is exactly how it happened. That you weren't part of it. I think I was just talking to Paul one day, and that
were you just randomly trying on headphones?
I was actually. I was going to try and see if I sounded better on there, but that's fine.
No, probably not.
Never mind. But
The
anyway,
technology. Okay, let me stop right here. The technology for recording video podcasts, if you are within the sound of my voice and you have a solution to video podcasting technology, it is 2019, almost 2020. We put men on the moon 40 years ago, and I can't record a video podcast that doesn't look like something that was filmed out of like a toy camera in a Cracker Jack box. It's ridiculous. And the audio is bad. Skype is garbage. Zoom is garbage. I need a new solution. So if you have any ideas, please let us know, because we'd like to provide high quality content. We are purveyors of fine content, and we lack the tools to provide it. So, okay, so sorry for the discursive tangent there, but seriously, this
always
is
nice to have a sponsor.
It's driving me nuts. So if you can see me, if my frame rate is more than 1 frame per second, continue your story, please.
Okay. What was my story? I don't remember.
I think it was about...
about just talking to Paul, and then you came forward with, well, okay, let's do that. So Paul
well,
said,
I think you guys invited me, and I was totally broke. I had nothing. Like that, I would work in the summers and at Christmas and stuff, but I had nothing left for whatever reason that year. I was out.
I forget why, but I think I had enough money, maybe Paul had enough money. Somebody had enough money to go.
You guys just told me just come. We're going anyway, so just get in. Basically, was what.
Well, I think that was the thing. I think Paul and I had discussions about, well, let's just pay for him to come, and so we said, don't worry about it. Just come along, we'll figure it out later.
Which was crazy.
Again, as Paul tends to do, just go.
He's that kind of guy. Yeah. So okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was December of 1998.
That is correct.
So we are now 21 years.
December 1999.
No, 99. I was in Austria. Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right. 98. It was 98.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So 21 years this month since the fateful trip.
That is correct.
So I remember I had a final. I think it was actually on. Was it the 8th? Was it on the Immaculate Conception? I think that was my last final, and Dr. Schaefer, I doubt you're listening, but seriously, he wouldn't let me take the final early, and he knew what we were doing. So I had to get out of class at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then we got some food, and we just got on the road. And from that point on, it was a little bit of a blur for a while. I mean, so we're in this Nissan pickup truck that's, it's a little pickup truck. We're not talking a Nissan Titan here. We're talking like a Nissan. What was it? What was the model? Do you even know?
No idea.
The Nissan,
but it definitely had no lift at all.
The Nissan Red Rocket that really, I mean, you could fit 2 people in the front seat. And it was a stick shift. It was a stick shift.
Yeah.
And so we had a cap on the back, and we threw a mattress that I think we just pulled off of one of the beds in one of the dorm rooms in the back. And so it was mandatory, essentially, that we alternated shifts with somebody laying in the back and trying to sleep. Because there just wasn't enough room for 3 large men in the front seat of that thing. Especially not with the shifter right in the middle. So, it created some logistical difficulties. Let's just put it that way. So we drove pretty much nonstop, right? We were driving 24 hours a day, taking turns, trying to get to Guadalupe in 3 days.
In 3 days, yes.
So Steubenville to Texas, I think, is roughly in the 1,700 to 1,800 mile range, maybe a little bit more.
Yep, and I believe it's another 1,200 miles to Mexico City. So it was about 3,000 miles, if I remember correctly.
But 1,200 Mexico miles are like 15,000 normal miles. So I remember, we hit the little snag in San Antonio where the muffler develops a growling hole in it that was so mind-numbingly loud that there was not a chance that we were going to continue like that. So we lose almost a whole day getting that replaced.
And whoever was in the back could not sleep anymore.
No, I was in the back. I was in the back when that thing went, and I was like, "Holy cow! That is the loudest failed muffler I've ever heard in my 22 years of life." So we stopped. We stayed with somebody we knew from school. We got this done, and then we head for the border, and we get across, and we get to that transfer station. I don't know what that thing was called. And they were like, "You're not coming into this country unless you buy this really expensive bond."
Well, if you remember correctly, it was actually, we got to the border, And we thought, great, we made it across the border. We got further in, which I think was like 10 miles in, and it was a deep or it was called like the interior check station or something, but it was you had to have a second passport to enter, or a second
form of ID.
What's the word? Well, not form of ID, but it was like a second kind of a passport or kind of a permit of some kind. It was a permit. That's what it was. A permit to get through that second checkpoint to go deeper into the interior, and it was like $700 or $500. It was some
It was a few hundred.
amount.
I know it was at least $350. I just remember thinking, wow, that's more money than I have in all the world right now. And
I remember that Paul had that money available to himself, and of course, Paul being Paul said, "We'll just go back and get it then."
But he was
And we
ready.
did.
I mean, he was almost ready to turn around. Which was
But
uncharacteristic for our lead adventurer.
That's very true.
But I think he was pretty frustrated.
He was, but I think in the end, he was the one that convinced us all, let's just keep on going then.
We were literally flirting with girls at the counter, trying to get a bond from them, because that's the thing. Like, I guess what it was is you couldn't cross into Mexico with an American vehicle that you didn't have some kind of a bond, so that if you left it in the country or whatever, like Americans are going to Mexico leaving cars, as opposed to everybody from Mexico coming into America and taking their cars and bringing them back to Mexico. I don't really know what that was all about. I don't think that was a real problem, but so we had resorted to flirting with the girls at the counter, hoping that maybe if we charmed them, like a bunch of 90-year-old women, and they weren't, they were like 20.
Of course.
If we charmed them enough, they would just let us cross, because it's Mexico, anything goes, right? And that did
And of
not.
course, we had the time of 20-year-old boys.
Yeah, that did not work out nearly as well as we believed that it could at the time.
I believe the price went up, actually. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually think that, the price went up. You even offered them like miraculous medals, and it was like, nope, this is not $350. This is a miraculous medal that's made out of like zinc. It's worth 15 cents. So we wind up getting the bond, and then we go into Mexico, and Arrested Development hadn't come out at that point, but I think that the theme that we were all feeling as we headed down that dark highway, littered with abandoned vehicles for no apparent reason, no lights, it was, I've made a huge mistake.
I will say,
we paid money to get into this place.
no, that's true. But I will say, if you remember correctly, as soon as you cross that deeper interior checkpoint, just off to the left side, there was a really beautiful shrine with 1 million candles inside of it. And we crossed that checkpoint or whatever, the second border patrol, whatever, about maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And there was a beautiful shrine there with all this light there. And so just to enter in, there was just this beautiful shrine. And I remember thinking, like, that's a good sign. Though you're right, we were all like,
I don't remember that shrine. That's crazy.
You don't remember that?
No.
I think I might have a picture of it, actually. I might have a picture in my album about that. But
yeah, we're going to have to get some of your pictures.
Remember that distinctive. At the very beginning, there was a couple of different shrines just across from the checkpoint. There were just this beautiful little. They were little buildings, little casitas, basically, with like four entrances on either side, on all sides. But then there were like candles all around the interior, so that there was beautiful glow coming out of each of these shrines, probably about a mile away from one another, just for like the first 3 miles or something. But I remember that very distinctly.
So do you remember? I mean, what day was it that we crossed into Mexico?
It had to have been, because it took us, I think, 24 hours to get to Texas. And so we thought for sure we'll make it all the way to Mexico City, but then we broke down in Texas. And I think that took us, like you said, the full day.
So maybe it was the night of the 10th?
It might have been.
Or was it the 11th?
It probably was the night of the 10th, because I think it took us much longer to drive all the way down through Mexico.
I mean, so I don't know how to explain.
No, because we spent the night in Texas. That's actually what happened.
We did.
Yeah,
so it had to have been the
took
11th, right?
It had to have been the 11th, but then it took us, we drove down the 9th. Or did we leave? We might have even left the evening of the 8th, actually.
The bottom line is we had like 24 hours, I think, when we got into Mexico to get all the way to Mexico City. And Mexico, I don't know what Mexico's like now, other than a narco state run by cartels that I wouldn't go to at this moment in time.
I shudder to think.
But at the time, I mean, the infrastructure that was there was nothing like the United States. We made it from Ohio to Texas in 24 hours because of the interstate system. I mean, you just drive, you can go 80 miles an hour, you can get there. You get into Mexico and all bets are off. I wasn't kidding about the vehicles littering the highway, just abandoned. I mean, tractor trailers, no lights, no reflectors, nothing, on a pitch black highway with no streetlights anywhere nearby, and you're just driving at 60 miles an hour, and then there's a tractor trailer just parked in the middle of a 3-lane highway, and you're like, if I don't swerve, we're all gonna die. And there was a lot of that. And then we were driving through mountainous terrain. We were driving through villages.
Wait, during the mountainous terrain, do you remember that we came across? There's a certain point we had to stop, and we thought, why are we stopping? And I think we either slowly moved forward or we got out of the car, maybe. But we saw that a bus had driven off the side of a cliff. Remember this?
It was a tour bus.
And so we stopped.
Yeah,
it was a tour bus that had driven off the side of the cliff, way down the side of the cliff. And so there was a big giant tow truck that was trying to pull it up over the mountain.
No, there were two things. So you're mixing up two things, because that afternoon. So first of all, we're on the mountains, and the mountains. I mean, gorgeous mountain terrain, but switchback roads, no guardrails, very treacherous. Two-lane roads. Yeah. The first obstacle we ran into was an antique tow truck, which had wrapped the tow cable around a giant tree to get extra leverage, and they were trying to pull up a truck that had gone over the side. Very foggy day, so you couldn't see the corners very well. And the truck was full of crackers or cookies or something like that. You remember that? That's right, yes. And it had burst open, and so there was cookies or crackers or whatever. They're galletas. I don't know which is which, but they were all over the road. And the road was totally blocked as this tow truck was trying to use this tree as like a fulcrum to pull this thing up, right? So that was the first thing. We waited, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours for that to get cleared. And then we get going again, and almost immediately, I mean, it was within 30 minutes, I think, we hit that one switchback. It was very, very tight curve, and a tour bus full of people had gone over the edge, and it had gotten wedged in between the U of the curve, and the bus was in between, but it was like 70 feet down. I mean, I don't know if anybody was alive. I don't know. Like, there had to have been casualties. This was pre-internet-based cell phones, and not that there would have been coverage where we were anyway. It wasn't like you could hop on Twitter and say, hey, what's going on this road? I mean, we had no idea what was going on. There was tons of bystanders on the side of the road, so there wasn't anything we could do. I think we just prayed the rosary for them. But man, I mean, it was crazy. The kinds of obstacles. It was like a trip to Mordor. I mean, you're coming across these things and you're like, what is even happening? This is stuff you never see on a day-to-day basis. We came across that bridge that was out, that the only indication that the bridge was out was they put a string of Christmas lights across the gap. You remember that one?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you're getting ready to just launch like the Dukes of Hazzard into this abyss. Because this bridge is out in the middle of the night. And it's like, oh, we'll just put a string of Christmas lights. It'll be fine. Everybody knows what that means. One night, it may have all been one long night. I don't even remember.
It was one long night.
There was that one part of the road that we were on where I almost drove straight into the ocean because the road went straight into the ocean.
I was going to mention, but that's on the way back coming north.
Was it?
You're right.
Oh my gosh.
That was on the way home.
I just remember that driving along, and the road just, suddenly it was sand. The road went, but then there was no more road. Then it was sand. Again, pitch black. There's no light other than the headlights. Then it's sand. Then suddenly I'm like, what is that moving, glimmering? Oh, that's the ocean. I'm driving into the ocean. So that was fun.
Yeah, I remember that distinctly as well.
We got pulled over by every kind of military police that you could imagine. I mean, military checkpoints as we were crossing borders between Mexican states, and you got Humvees and, machine gun nests, and then of course they wanted to search the truck that one time, and Paul was asleep, and our friend Paul was the kind of guy you couldn't wake up even with a fire alarm in the middle of the night, and so this Mexican military guy, he's trying to search the back end to make sure we don't have any contraband, and our friend just starts kicking him in his sleep. And Tomas and I, at the time, were the ones sitting up in the front, and we're like, we're going to get shot. We're going to get shot today, and our families are never going to hear from us again. I mean, he's got an M16 slung over his shoulder, and he's trying to search, and our giant Paul Bunyan of a friend is literally just kicking him with his trunk-like legs And I'm just like, this isn't going to end well. But fortunately, we just kept invoking Our Lady of Guadalupe and saying, hey, we're just going, to see Our Lady of Guadalupe for our feast day. Yeah. And everybody's like, pásale, go. Like, everybody was cool. So the banditos didn't get us.
There were some cows or rhinoceroses.
Yeah, rhinoceroses. No, they weren't rhinoceroses. They just didn't know how to paint a cattle crossing sign.
Remember
in the dark, all horns look the same, right? I mean, it's like,
I tried to tell you guys.
The head of the cow was turned in such a way that you could have almost construed the horn to have been a rhinoceros horn, but there are no rhinoceroses in Mexico. Rhinoceri? Rhinoceropodies? So, I don't know how you pluralize rhinoceros. So anyway, yeah, lots of things. They had cops that wanted us to bribe them. I mean, everything under the sun. But so all of this is to say, I mean, it's fun to reminisce about it, but this is the thing that I learned about pilgrimages on that trip. Everything that seems to be going awry, every danger that you come across, every unbelievable scene, it all entices you to pray. It all entices you to seek the intercession, particularly of whoever it is that you're on a pilgrimage to see. So, praying to Our Lady. I mean, I don't think I've ever prayed so many rosaries in the span of 3 or 4 days as I did on that trip, because I thought we were going to die constantly.
Certainly.
Just constant.
Certainly, yeah.
And
you remember, though, that...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, at a certain point, though, do you remember that the day of the 12th, when we finally got to Our Lady... Well, we weren't even at Our Lady's feast day, but Our Lady's place yet, but as we were driving towards Mexico City, and we started to head down the mountains, we began to see all these people carrying torches, and we're like, why are they carrying torches?
And it was still foggy.
And it was still foggy, absolutely.
So you would see like these torches through the fog and stuff like that, and then there were crowds of people. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You tell it.
And then there was trucks going by that would be carrying the people with torches who were supposed to go next. So they kind of were like the pace truck, I guess, for the people running with torches. But it was just beautiful to see. We finally realized all these people are heading towards Mexico City. They're all trying to get to...
At the very least, they were doing local parades with their own images of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I mean, it was
like the Olympic torch.
Yeah, it really was. And I'd never heard of anything like that. I'd never seen anything like that. It was incredible. Yeah. And so it's interesting how these experiences, I guess, I mean, they're formative and they shape you, but you see the point of the pilgrimage is almost, and I don't know if this is the case in other pilgrimages. I mean, I haven't done a lot of pilgrimages. I have not had the chance. But it seems to me that the journey is more important, and I don't mean to be cliche, but in many respects, it's more important than the destination. It's what happens to you and how it shapes you along the way. The experiences that you have, the memories that you make, the prayers that you pray, the fellowship that you have with the people that you're with. It's all such a big part of that whole journey.
Yeah. If you've never read it, there's a great book called Hills and Sea by Hilaire Belloc, which there's a chapter that's called The Idea of a Pilgrimage. It's quite interesting. He goes on to say about how exactly, I mean, when I worked for Christendom College, we taught this to our students. I pointed this out to them directly, is he makes the point that any pilgrimage must not be untroublesome. That's exactly how he says it. A pilgrimage must not be untroublesome, because in that way, you encounter God in the depths of the sorrow, the woe, the concern you have.
The fear,
the fear, all that fear. You encounter God there, because you realize I'm only taking step by step with the Lord.
Yeah, I can't do it.
He's either guiding us or we're dead. As we said all the way there, she's either with us, or as he famously kept saying,
is she not our mother? Yeah, no, that was our catchphrase. Is she not our mother? Because that was, paraphrasing, but that was what she said to Juan Diego, because he was afraid of the consequences of doing what she wanted and everything like that. And she's like, "What are you worried about? Am I not your mother who is with you? Haven't I held you in my arms? Like, don't I give you everything you need? What else do you need than this? Why are you worried?" So that was our catchphrase. Is she not our mother? And it got us through a lot of things.
Absolutely, as well it should. The whole idea of the pilgrimage then is that it really is reflective of our own Catholic life and our own Catholic experience. That all throughout the journey, that God is always with us, as long as we're aware to have our eyes open, right, to call upon Him as we did on that journey. Right, recognize that God's mercy and grace are all about us always, but we have to be able to recognize it. And that, I think, is what that journey helped us see. And for young eyes, it was good to have that experience of really seeing that reality before us.
Yeah.
No matter what we encountered again, we just called upon, or even just mentioned Our Lady's name to these people, the natives there in Mexico, and they're like, "Oh, you said pásale, pásale," and you're like, "Well, all right, that worked." Like, how did that work?
Yeah, it was like we had the secret phrase that pays. It was like, Vamos a la Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's all good. Go. You're good. I was going to shoot you in the face, but now you're fine.
Basically, yeah.
It was
For
also
protection.
interesting, I thought, too, the next day, because we weren't able to go into the Basilica that night because it was already locked up when we got there, which was a disappointment, but it was like we were there. She knew we were there.
Yeah.
And we went to Mass the next day. We got to go see the old Basilica, which I think is open again now, but I mean, the whole thing's built on a swamp and it was sinking into the ground. We got Go ahead.
Supposedly, whether it's true or not, the guy told us, "Oh, well, we don't show this to everybody, but since you guys are young pilgrims, we'll let you go near."
No, he totally was looking for a bribe, and he got one. But we got to go in there and we got to see that amazing silver high altar and all that stuff. It was really neat. And then we went to the pyramids of I think it's Tenochtitlan.
Tenochtitlan.
Teotihuac. I don't remember which one they are, but the Aztec pyramids.
Yeah.
And just looking at what the culture was that was there before, and looking what Mary conquered. I mean, it's a profound thing because that is a place just riddled with death, right? I mean,
yeah. People have gone crazy there, I guess.
The plumed serpent god Quetzalcoatl, which as paganism resurges in Latin America, you wonder if you're going to see that come back.
Well, I believe the current president of Mexico had called for the return to the prayer to praying to Quetzalcoatl.
Oh,
actually,
really?
Yeah, because he's a full-on pagan. He's a full-on believer in the old Aztec gods. Oh yeah,
I believe and Quetzalcoatl is the stone serpent. So I mean, she crushes the head of the serpent. I mean, 8 million Catholics were made converts, in just a couple of years from the indigenous peoples of Mexico. After she appeared to Juan Diego. I mean, it was just a phenomenal outpouring of grace on that country. Culturally, what does it mean? What did it mean to you to go do this?
Well, just culturally, knowing that my family, again, is, as you know, but anyways, most of my family, my immediate family and really extended family as well, have either half-heartedly or have turned away from the practice of their faith. And so it was just interesting to go and to see where it all began, for my family and our experience as an extended family, just to know that this is where all of that came from. As I tell my students now who are in my biblical school classes, if things had gone different, or if a Blessed Brother hadn't showed up, I might be eating hearts today.
Yeah. I mean, how far back is your family, though? I mean, you're what generation of American?
I am only a second-generation American, and I'm pretty sure somewhere, I think in San Luis Potosí, I think it is, perhaps. Someone probably in the comments will be able to explain this, but there's some city where there's apparently a lot of Fuertes in the town, and they're really well known as a family. I don't know exactly what it's. I think it's San Luis Potosí, but I forget exactly where it's at because I've never been there. But at any rate, so we have a lot of people there in the town, and then on my father's side, I believe we're primarily Aztec descent. My mom said there's probably more Spaniard influence. But I'm not sure of that either. But yeah, just to know that it all began there. Our people, our families wouldn't have existed unless the Blessed Mother had appeared, because we might have been by somebody.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's a huge thing. For me, I had my own reasons for wanting to go. And the point of a pilgrimage is often some petition or intercession, and I felt like the thing that I had at the time I was struggling with was answered. I think we all had our own things, but it's amazing looking back. I mean, 21 years ago, at the time that we went, we'd only known each other for a year or two. Mm-hmm. And now here we are 21 years later, still friends, still have
Absolutely.
this to fall back on.
It's great.
The experiences that a pilgrimage like this makes are phenomenal. So I can't say that I recommend to anybody that they follow in our footsteps at this current time. Mexico has become a dangerous place. I don't know if I would make that drive.
I don't make that either, but if you feel called, that's a different story. If the Lord's clearly calling you to go, well, listen.
Yeah, maybe
go where He calls.
Maybe he'll send St. Michael with you because holy cow, things are rough down there.
Just make very, very sure He's calling.
But the part of the thing that's funny is we had no idea at the time how much danger we actually were probably in.
Oh no.
Like, I think we looked back afterward, and there were State Department bulletins warning Americans not to travel in Mexico at that time, and
absolutely,
there was a lot of danger in the hinterlands of Mexico that we traveled through. Former military that had become banditos, You were always on the lookout for banditos when you were down there. But yeah, just people, American guys that would go down there for spring break or whatever, like they would disappear sometimes. I mean, just people would get, and so I think that I don't know if it would have affected us if it would have kept us from going because we were college kids and that's what you do. But I think that the amount of prayers that we prayed and the purpose that we really did keep in both heart and mind probably is why we got through it safely.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, as you're talking about particular petition to take with you, I was going specifically to pray for my friend who was getting married. When I got back to Colorado, I was going to go to his wedding first and then go off to Franciscan University study abroad program. So I was just praying for that. I have a good experience there, my friend's marriage. And of course, what ended up happening is I ended up meeting my wife, my current wife, well, my only wife, on the journey to Austria with Franciscan University. So
hey, Amoris Laetitia is out. You could have as many wives as you want. It's all good.
Well, that's that may be nice for Amoris Laetitia, but not so much for the Lord. So I'd be after. At any rate, the point is, it was just interesting to see I really do credit that whole consecration and the prayers that we were able to offer, and I was able to offer personally, to finding my wife in the midst of my life and going to Austria. And at the time, she was a very good friend of mine, not you though, unfortunately, was a totally different friend, was totally interested in this girl, but then we ended up going to Austria together and we ended up kind of talking more and more. And then I just said, I called my friend and said, hey, would you mind if I started dating her? And he was like, yeah, go for it. And that, all that, and it was very smooth the way it all happened, but I credit that all to our Blessed Mother and her intercession in that, because I don't see how that would have worked otherwise, honestly. Like, lots of friendships could have ruined in that, but it worked out.
I mean, it's, and this is what happens in pilgrimages, is that miracles, often the ones you aren't looking for, come out of them. So for those of you who would like to read a little bit more with some pictures about the adventures that we had, I'm going to put a link to the article I've written about our little adventure up in the show notes. I may even stick it back up at the top of the site. I've done it a few times, so I don't know if I will. But I will definitely put a link in the show notes. Tomas, thanks for coming on and revisiting the craziest road trip I've ever taken. 11,000 miles all told in 2 weeks. A good portion of that hitchhiking in a car with no heater across the Midwest during sub-zero temperatures with a dog that was sick and kept throwing up. And I got nominated to hold the bag, and the guys who were driving were smoking weed pretty much constantly and listening to Stephen King books on audio tape. So that was how my pilgrimage ended. I got 2,000 miles of that little fun time adventure. But I got home safely, and all is well that ends well, right?
Absolutely. Amen. Amen.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for letting me come on with you.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care, you too.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the OnePeterFive podcast. As always, we ask that if you enjoyed this podcast, you like it, share it, subscribe to it, give it a glowing 5-star review on iTunes. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon on our YouTube channel so that you're notified about new videos when they come out. And as always, we also ask that if you enjoy our work in general at OnePeterFive, you consider making a small financial contribution in support of our work. Please remember that OnePeterFive is an entirely 100% reader, listener, and viewer-supported enterprise. We can't do the work we do without you. Until next time, I'm Steve Skojak. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.